Hey you guys, my name is Dr. Cade and I am sitting here with Coach Cason, and today we are going to pick a top three. We're going to talk top 3 lab tests that you should make sure that you're getting on a regular basis to keep track of things. So whether you're healthy, whether you're sick, whether you're dealing with something, these are the top 3 to make sure that you're looking at with a fine-tooth comb, which we're going to talk about here today. So the 3 lab values are to look at blood sugar, vitamin D, and those are kind of the 2 that most people really are getting already, and then we'll talk a little bit about the difference between being in the normal zone versus being in a little bit of a tighter range. And then the third one is more functional blood tests, right? We'll talk about maybe a micronutrient test, and we'll talk about gut testing. So that's your forecast of the video today, and so let's jump into it. So the 2 values for blood sugar are going to be A1C and then fasting blood glucose, right? So if those numbers are too high, those numbers are out of range, what things are people probably dealing with or can anticipate that they're going to deal with?
Well, high blood sugar, I mean, the list is long.
I mean, it's basically linked to every disease out there.
Everything. So, but some things that we see a lot are a lack of energy. Like really tired. You don't feel like you got to get up and go. Brain fog. You're not thinking clearly. And weight gain. I think that would be my top 3.
Yeah. So if we're looking at fasting blood glucose, after you eat, there's a period of time where we want to make sure that your body is using that sugar. And whether you're using it for fuel because you utilize like an active lifestyle, or if you're more sedentary, we're wanting to see how your body uses that blood sugar and stores it as fat. And so it does. It's got a lot to do with weight gain. It's got a lot to do with physical wellness, right? The aches and the pains of fibromyalgia, joint pain, stuff like that. It's got a lot to do with mental wellness, right? And that mental motivation and clarity, just like you said. So that's a big one. And then anything else we want to talk about there? What are things that are going to make those numbers worse? We're kind of alluding to that with a sedentary versus active lifestyle.
Well, I mean, the standard American diet, that shoots our blood sugar through the roof. There's sugar in everything, not just sugar, but toxins, chemicals.
For sure. It's a perfect storm, isn't it?
That affects it. So
so sugars, most people are probably thinking, like Snickers bars or ice cream. What are the other, really probably the bigger offenders are for sugars? Bread,
carbs,
pasta, rice, right? I mean, at its basic form, those things are just sugar. We kind of just get trained into thinking that we got to have that at every meal, but those things will definitely cause blood sugar issues. How about the top 3 things or top couple things that people can do to bring their blood sugar back into check?
Well, I like walking after a meal.
Love it.
Just movement. When we move, our muscles need glucose. They need that sugar that's in the blood, so it's going to pull that into the muscle. So simple movement after a meal. You could even go as far as doing some sit to stands in a chair, in repetition, or some push-ups on the countertop.
How about if somebody can't miss their show and they have to be sitting down after dinner? You could do something as simple as just an isometric, some pushing and some pulling. So
I'm thinking of the hand squeezer.
Just trying to make sure everybody is happy here, right?
Yeah, don't miss that show.
We talked a little bit about supplement-wise, if activity isn't your thing. Of course, the more of these things that you can do, the better it's going to be. But there's a lot of blood sugar blends out there, things like cinnamon, zinc, chromium, gymnema. There's a lot of different herbal and mineral kind of things that you can do to help your body modulate the blood sugar. But again, if we're continuing to put sugar in, those receptors, they get a little bit numb and they get less.
They don't want it.
They get less responsive to modulating a good balance with blood sugar. So anything else we need to say about blood sugar before we jump into vitamin D?
Well, you can always fast.
Ooh, I love it.
Not eat. That's hard for a lot of people. I know it was when I first started, but when you don't eat, when you're not giving your body sugar, things tend to normalize.
And normalize pretty quickly, right?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. I like it. Well, let's jump into number 2, vitamin D. And with vitamin D, this is a great one to talk about the difference between a normal range, right, and an optimal range. Normal ranges of lab work is typically based off of like 80 to 90% of the population, and we know 80 to 90% of our population in this country, unfortunately, is not very healthy. And so within that normal range, we're looking for a tighter optimal range. And so again, vitamin D is a great one to make sure that you're getting checked because it's linked to pretty much all disease. It's more of a hormone, right, than it is. You can see why we pick these labs, because it's linked to everything, right? But it's more of a hormone than it is a vitamin. So from hormone production to immune system regulation to neurologic issues, right, and brain development, vitamin D is crucial, right? And again, we actually had a little bit of a study here from Grassroots Health, and so I wanted to make sure that I shared this. It's linked to cancer levels, and pretty much all cancer levels. So I'll pick one of breast cancer. And this said, the normal kind of way that the medical model is looking at that number is if you're above a 30 is where you're sufficient, right? You're in the normal range. And so when you jump from that 30 up to it looks like a 50 as far as that test value goes, there's an 80% reduction in breast cancer alone. That's remarkable. Why is that not on every commercial, on every news station, on every channel on TV, right? I mean, that's a big 83% reduction. Huge. How many mothers, how many grandmothers, how many sisters would potentially still be here if they had adequate levels of vitamin D?
Yeah, I mean, and the cool thing is you can do something about it.
I mean, right?
You can change that quickly.
So what's the best thing that they can do for free in Southwest Florida?
Go outside.
Love it.
I mean, that's the easiest. Get in the sun. I've heard, and I don't have any studies to back this up, but sun exposure on your belly is the highest absorption of vitamin D. The sun gives us vitamin D. It's everything we need.
Yeah, absolutely. We've been, kind of trained to think that the sun is bad, and so we want to make sure that you're not out there and getting a sunburn and getting sun damage. But sun is what gives life to this planet. If we're a little bit closer to the sun or a little bit further away from the sun, there isn't life on this planet. And so it's very important to get the right time out in the sun and the right amount. So is there a way that they can kind of get out in the right time? What's the right time? Because that might be different every day, correct?
Yeah, I don't know that exactly, but I'm thinking midday, when the sun's at its peak. But there's also benefits to sunrise and sunset.
There is.
With that gets into melatonin and serotonin, but and circadian rhythms. But yeah, I think the peak of the day.
Yeah. So my favorite way, just for you that's listening, no matter where you are in the world, no matter what time of year it is, that midday might carry different types of heat or different amounts of exposure. So there's a great app. It's called D-Minder. It's available on both iOS and on Android, and it'll tell you your location and where the the Earth's rotation around the sun. Easy for me to say. It'll tell you what time of day is peak for UVB rays, which of course is what converts to vitamin D through the skin's exposure to it. So show your belly, download that app, and get out there, as much as you can.
Hey, what if somebody's up north in Minnesota?
Use that app or else supplement. Right? And that supplementation shouldn't be just a ground value of 3,000 or 8,000, IUs of vitamin D. It should be based off of your lab. Some people need more, some people might not need it at all, right? And so, it really should be based on that lab value. Fair enough?
Yeah.
Anything else we want to say on that one?
Well, if you don't test, you don't know.
Amen to that. Amen to that. Well, I think the last number that I saw is there's more than 80% of people, even in Southwest Florida, that are deficient in vitamin D. So again, if we're just thinking about breast cancer and breast cancer alone, not to mention all the other things, there's a huge opportunity to completely change your life with just vitamin D.
Yeah.
All right, so hopefully you're still hanging in there because we've got one more to go. We've covered blood sugar, we've covered vitamin D, and the last one we need to talk about a little bit is functional medicine tests. So
actually 2.
Yeah, it's true. You get a bonus today. Lucky you. Not 3, but 4 tests here. So why don't you start out with a comprehensive stool test? I mean, that's a big one and can go a long way.
Yeah, well, Hippocrates, I think, was the one that said all disease starts in the gut.
It's going back a ways, huh?
Yeah. So there's some answers in our gut, and when we test the stool, we can see what's in there. Not a pretty test, not the most fun to do, but gives us some really good information. So we can check out if there's bacterial imbalances. Yep. What else do we have on the list?
Pancreatic sufficiency, enzyme health.
Yep, yep. The other thing is leaky gut.
That's a big one.
We look at this marker called zonulin, so we see if our gut's leaking into into the bloodstream. So yeah, just all kinds of value that we can get from that test.
Why don't we just quickly jump into each one of those things? So bacterial imbalance, right? If there's an imbalance of the good and the bad bacteria in the body, that could lead to things like bad breath, digestive issues, malabsorption, or I was going to say constipation or diarrhea, inconsistent bowel movements, and that's just that alone, is a big one. That has a lot to do with neurologic growth and development, and neurologic health, mood and mood stability. So just that alone is linked to a lot of different things. Immune system health with bacterial imbalances.
So much.
What was the next one we talked about? Pancreatic health and enzyme production. Again, it goes right back to how well you break things down.
Sure.
You were mentioning the size of those particles.
Right. So yeah, if we don't have the proper enzymes to splice and break down fats and proteins and sugars, then we can't absorb them optimally.
Amen.
And if we're not absorbing them optimally, then it just leads to all kinds of stuff. So
well, and that kind of leads into the next test we'll talk about, but some potential deficiencies there. And then leaky gut. Leaky gut's a big one. So people that, again, mood imbalances, right? Whether it's anxiety, depression, ADD, bipolar, leaky gut's linked with skin issues like psoriasis and eczema. It's linked to joint pain. It's linked to fibromyalgia. It's linked to basically all the autoimmune stuff. And so that's been a hot topic in the functional health world, that leaky gut term, for the last, 5, 8, 10 years. Yeah. It's a way that you can know exactly if you have it, and then what do? You go after it and you heal it and you treat that properly.
Right.
It takes the guesswork out.
Yep.
So bacterial imbalances, pancreatic deficiency,
leaky gut.
And leaky gut. So we got those covered for a comprehensive stool test. So if you've got questions, of course, reach out to us on that topic. But the last one brings us to a micronutrient test. So a micronutrient test is a way to see if your body has the proper nutrients. And if it has too much, it can be a toxicity. If it has too little, it's obviously a deficiency, which again is a perfect segue from that, that comprehensive stool test. So there's a lot of them out there in the market. There's some cheap ones that you can do with urine. You can do it with saliva. You can do it with hair. And there's some more expensive ones that, combine those along with blood. And I think the blood is going to be the gold standard so that we can see the nutrition, not just in the blood, but what's actually inside the cell. And it takes your food protocol and your supplementation protocol. There's no guesswork. You know exactly what you need versus what I need versus what your spouse needs, right? Yep. It takes that guesswork out. And it's fantastic. And so again, if you want to be proactive and test these things once a year, every couple of years, to see where your system is at, if you're one of those people that's always pushing for better health and optimal health and trying to prevent things from happening years down the road, it's a smart idea. Or on the flip side, if you're sick and you've been struggling with some of the symptoms that we've talked about today and you're yet to find an answer, or you're unhappy with treating these things and trying to cover them up with medication, just know that there's so many more things that you can do. And we're just at the tip of the iceberg here talking about the top 3 blood tests and lab tests. I shouldn't say blood tests, but top 3 lab tests that you can get done.
Yeah.
So before we wrap this up, Cason, anything else you want to say?
Well, I think it goes back to, if you don't test, you don't know.
Yeah.
And so we can get a lot of information, and a lot of people come in and they're confused about their labs that they've gotten from conventional doctors or functional medicine doctors. And so getting some clarity on what that actually means and how to change it is huge.
And then at the end of that leads to you feeling better and more confident about your health decisions. So we'd be so honored to help you. Our doors open here at LifeStrength Health Center. Of course, we always do a free 15-minute consult, so feel free to reach out to Bella, our office manager, and we can do that over email, we can do that over phone, or of course, we always prefer that in person. But yeah, thank you guys so much. We're looking forward to another video. Feel free to reach out with any questions.